Personal struggles. Kathy and Gina, both of these, and I'm sorry. I just met Gina this weekend. I know this story now. Death and kids. One of them is the death of the father in a car accident, and another is somebody who lost their brother when he was 2 years old. And there's another situation, somebody that's got cancer that's related to our church that we've been praying for. And how does all, I mean, this is basically, why do bad things happen? And I talk about this on a regular basis, but my answer is God doesn't cause it. The Bible says God does not inflict grief on the hearts of men. I mean, God doesn't want this to happen. It's the part of living in the imperfect world. That's why when I was talking the theological questions, someday there's going to be a place where there's no more pain, no more crying, no more death. Okay, that's going to be awesome. Right now there is death, there is a curse. So sometimes there's pain because I cause it, I make decisions that are dumb. Sometimes there's pain because other people cause it and they have free will. Sometimes it's Satan. Sometimes it's just because we live in this world where we live and there's no explanation. The question really is, why didn't God stop it? And that's an unanswerable question. I don't know. Why couldn't your brother have, stayed alive when he was two, like little 2-year-olds all ought to? I've been through that process way too many times, and I don't know the answer to that. The hope that we have as believers is that 2-year-old is in the arms of Jesus, and we're going to be reunited. And 1 trillion billion years from now, when we look back on this little speck on the earth, it's not going to matter. That's not a lot of comfort for these kids who lost their dad right now. It's not a lot of comfort for you. What we need is to help each other. We do have a grief share program here that's phenomenal at church. We'd love to help you with it. I don't have great answers. I have hope. Mary asks, why don't we have Sunday school? Is there a way to make sure new believers are getting mentored? That concerns me. Mary Beth, it concerns me as well. The reason we don't have Sunday school is because Sunday school is an outdated program that really only happened, it didn't get started until the 1800s, so it's not a biblical concept. Coming and having a class at the church it is an outdated mode, and number two, it's just not practical, it's not pragmatic. It's not what they did in the Bible. In the Bible, what they did is they met together in each other's homes, and they continued in the apostles' teaching, and they met together for prayer, and that's what we call our life groups. I mean, that's the best thing that we can do. Now, unfortunately, the answer to, is there a way to make sure new believers are getting mentored? No. In a church of 20, there's no way to make sure a new believer is getting mentored. You could have everybody watching out for them, but they may still not be growing, and just because they're sitting in a class doesn't mean they're growing. They need to be in community, but they need to be serving, and we need to be continually growing. I was just writing on this for a chapter in my book. We're called to make disciples, and as we become disciples, then we grow in Jesus, and then we help other people make disciples. So that model is the same. Everybody sitting in a classroom with a teacher is it's the education system's idea. It was never the Bible's idea. The concern, are new believers being mentored? Hard to tell when you have as many thousands of people as we do, so we just keep pushing the programs. And we do have a lot of other classes for people. I don't even know what they all are because we have so many of them. Discipleship classes, Bible studies, things that do go on. But bottom line is, it's just not practical to build space to have everybody come to a room at the church. Sherry said, do you take communion every service? Yes, I do. I don't need to, but I mean, obviously I have to lead it, so I do. If you're at multiple services, can I get rebaptized? It's the same question. If you want to get rebaptized, you can. There's no reason for you to. There's no need for you to feel like you need to take communion more than one time a weekend. And honestly, if you miss a week, this is not a legalistic thing. This is a worship thing. Okay, probably simple question. How do you have the energy to preach, teach, be a good husband and father, marry, bury, do all those things, comfort the old? It's kind of interesting the way you asked that question, Joan, because I don't do all of those things. If you heard my sermon on margin a few weeks ago, I found the must-do things, and I do the must-do things. And the energy comes and goes, but that's about rhythm in my life. And when you see me gone on a weekend, which normally I'm going to be, you know, on 3 weekends, off a weekend, it's because I do 5 services a weekend now. So I'm not going to very often go 5, 6 weekends in a row because I need a weekend off. And unfortunately right now, a lot of those offs are preaching somewhere else, but it's still a change in pace for me, and God's sustaining me. But I appreciate the concern. But it is about rhythm for me. What that means is, like I even said in my sermon, you know, the week after Christmas, the week after Easter, I go away from here and nobody can find me, and I have rhythm in my life, and I do that on a daily basis and a weekly basis. Try to keep my margin. Kim says, deaf or hard of hearing ministry, maybe. What? I'm just kidding. I'm not going to even use that. Do we have a deaf ministry or a hard of hearing ministry? I don't know. I think we have those little things to help people hear. Do we have a signer down front? No, I don't think so. Not right now. I don't know why. I don't know, good or bad. That's just stuff I don't know. Michelle, when is Parkview going to start a Christian school or even a homeschool group? Homeschool group is a good idea. I don't know. Same thing as deaf ministry. I don't know. I'm not the programming guy. Goes back to Joan's question. How do I have the energy to do the things I do? By not knowing about deaf ministry and a homeschool group. That's how. There you go. I have no idea. You should talk to somebody, not me. The first question is, when are we going to have a Christian school? Probably never. There's a every one of my friends who is a pastor of a church that has a school and a church tells me that there's always a push and shove between using the same facility for more than one purpose. And our purpose is not to teach kids. Our purpose is to teach everybody. And so in order to start a Christian school, it would mean not doing things that we're doing now. And there's some, the second part of my answer is this. There are some great Christian schools out there. If you're in a school system that's not good, or you feel like you want your kids to be in a Christian school, there are some great ones, and we've got plenty of recommendations for you. So we don't need to reinvent that. The second part of that is, I don't believe that Christians necessarily ought to put their kids in Christian school. I didn't. My kids went all the way through Mokina and all the way through Lincoln Way, and it was good for them. Now again, if we lived in a place that didn't have a decent school system, we probably would have changed that along the way. But I get frustrated with people that think that because we're Christians, we should send our kids to Christian school. I think Jesus said we're supposed to be salt and light. And I know that, you know, asking your 6th grader to be salt and light might be a little over the top, and they might need a Christian school. But when my kids were in 6th grade, they needed to be in the world so that they could be salt and light and learn how to acclimate themselves in the world. Actually, then when they went to college, they ended up going to Christian colleges. All 3 of them did, and I think that was it was a good system for us. Maybe your kids need to go to Christian school and go to secular college. Maybe they need to, you know, be in Christian stuff all around. But I'm really not a proponent of the Amish mentality of let's go, you know, hang out with our own people all the time. I mean, that's that's what I'm writing this book about. We're supposed to be on mission. That's what we do. You have a friend, Kevin says, you have a friend who has a church in Vegas. Which one is it and what is his name? Judd Wilhite, who's going to be here, Central Christian in Vegas, actually right outside of Vegas, whatever that town is, Hendersonville. There is also Canyon Ridge Christian Church. Guy's a friend of mine, Shane Phillips. And there's also another one I can't think of, and his name is Kent Oder. It's actually where Mark Howell left to go to, if you know our small groups guy. I don't remember what it, but Kent Oder, O-D-E-R, is the pastor at that one. 3 good ones. Shoot us an email, we'll get you hooked up. I'm a Parkview fan. I feel connected here than any other, more connected here than any other church. Any chance to revisit the Weird series? Cool, yeah, I like revisiting series. That guy's gonna be at my convention in July. You should come hear Craig Rochelle, good stuff. All right, Kathy said, I think at this time and age we should have a sermon series on the ghosts and paranormal activity and what's right and wrong about it. So many shows about it, kids get into it, think it would be good. Yeah, I get that. I mean, you know, all the vampires and the zombies and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what I'd say, except it's not real. I mean, the dead thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'll think about that. I mean, I just did a series on preppers, where I talked about what happens after we die. Pretty hard to definitively talk about, I mean, obviously can talk about what I know with vampires or whatever, werewolves, but it doesn't seem like enough to warrant me bothering with it, because kids need parents to tell them that there's no such thing as twilight. So that's my answer. Ghosts and paranormal. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the Bible about not talking to the dead. And I know that's what you're talking about, but I don't know what I'd do with it. So I'll figure that out. I'll think about that. Christy said, "How do we spread the word without being a Jesus freak or a Bible thumper?" It's never going to be easy, Christy, because at some point, I was just writing in my book today. At some point, if people are like on the wrong plane, going to the wrong place, and you know it, it's going to be bad if you don't say, "Hey, this plane is going to California," and you're going, you think you're going to Orlando. It's not going to Orlando. It's going to California. So at some point, there's a reason to stand with a bridge out sign in front of the precipice that is there because the bridge is out. I would say that Jesus almost always, and I think it's best to err on the side of relationship. I think if we side on the side of relationship and we say, okay, I just want to get to know you, I just want to love you, and by the way, yeah, here's my story. I mean, we're called to be witnesses, not prophets. Don't forget that. Jesus said, "You'll be my witnesses." Okay, that means I believe in Jesus. I believe in who he is, and I believe that there's life after we die. And sometimes it'll take your friend 10 years, or, I know women who've prayed for their husbands for 40 years before they came to know Jesus. But I think it's better on a slow fade than it is the in your face. And the worst thing we can do is argue. I think the Bible thumper Jesus freak thing comes from the arguing, and especially about arguing about things that are important, like how old the earth is, or which view of the end times we ought to have, whether Left Behind was right or another one was right, or any of the stupid theological things that we get mired down in, or even which denomination is right. That's the stuff that labels us as a Jesus freak. What we can do is be a witness in our life and show them love and get to know them. And at some point, I think it's what Peter said, be prepared to give them a reason for the hope that is within you. Be prepared to give a reason for the hope that is within you. That's the best way. Salt, honestly, too much. We're supposed to be salt, right? You remember junior high when, some idiot unscrewed the cap and left it there so that you could dump salt all over your mystery meat. Ruined. No way to save it, okay? That's bad. Not enough salt. I just had some soup. I was at the hospital, and man, it was way healthy because it needed a ton of salt because it was under seasoned. Okay, you don't want that either. So there's a balance of the salt. There's a balance of light. You don't want to blast them with with your headlights on bright, and no light doesn't do any good either. So it's always about finding that balance. Kelly said, "What do you say to someone who doesn't believe they are worthy being loved by God?" I would say it's kind of tricky, Kelly. It's kind of tricky because you don't want to throw yourself out there too far. But I think the best thing is to say, "I know you're not worthy. Neither am I. Let me tell you about Let me tell you about what I've done. Let me tell you about my deal. Let me tell you about." Or if you don't want to come too clean, you can say, "Let me show you in the Bible where David, committed murder and adultery, and later on was still called a man after God's own heart. He was forgiven." Let's talk about the Apostle Paul, who killed Christians and became one of the first apostles. Let's talk about Peter, who denied Jesus, who Jesus called Satan. He said, "Get behind me, Satan. You're acting like Satan because you're trying to trip me up." And that guy became the leader of the first church. Go back to the Bible and show them nobody's worthy. More than anything, my story is Luke 15, it's the prodigal son. Always go back to the prodigal son and remind him that pig farmer was the lowest thing a Jew, you know, hear that audience, he was the lowest. Couldn't have been any lower. Stole his dad's money, basically, shunned him, walked off, wasted it in wild living, ended up as a pig farmer, and his dad said, welcome home. That's the parable of who the Father is.